week with the wrinkled cat thing. Okay, hey, coming to you live from the subarctic, I'm Craig Martelle, and
coming from Sin City, I'm Michael Anderle.
We're here today to talk to you about relationship management and how your brand kind of works into that. The reason we wanted to talk about this was next week, Michael will be at Superstars Writing Seminar in Colorado Springs, I believe.
I will be there with Kevin J. Anderson and his merry troop of individuals. I'll be speaking this year, but next year I will not be speaking because somebody else is going to be there. Who could that be? Who's going to be there in 2021, Craig?
I don't know. I think it's going to be me.
It is.
Yeah. So no, I appreciate Kevin's confidence and hopefully I'll deliver for him in a presentation and a couple panels.
I think you will. I think you have the chops to do it.
But so next week while you're there, because there could be some heavy hitters. I know Brandon Sanderson has been there in the past, and last year Jim Butcher was there. So when you talk to somebody like that, how do you what do you do?
You know what? It was interesting because I did actually talk to Jim Butcher a couple of times. He was at lunch with us. There was a big group of us that went out. His son was there, Jim's son, and others. Although Jim, honestly, he was sitting more at the other end of the table, and the guy I wanted to talk to, interestingly enough, was an Audible individual. I had read some of Jim's books, but I hadn't read very many of them, and I certainly didn't know until I was sitting out in the audience that Jim's main character is a huge proponent of Coca-Cola.
Cool.
And I was a little bit dejected about that because I had thought maybe Bethany Ann was one of the first ones who had this massive desire for Coca-Cola. And no, he beat me by decades at least. But when you go there and you're talking about meeting with someone like that, believe it or not, Mr. Martelle, I'm really much a big introvert. And I have a real hard problem introducing myself to people because I look at it and I go, what if they reject me? And so I have, I'm happy to talk with people, but man, I get a little cold sweat when I have to go up and introduce myself.
Yeah, I remember when we were in Pittsburgh together at the book signing, and they gave us a righteous position right next to Patrick Rothfuss. And you're like, hey, it's Patrick Rothfuss. And he had his assistants there who were doing some stuff. And he found out that he didn't have any books to give away. So you went into the Sifwa bookstore and you bought all the copies of his book and you gave them to him and said, hey, these are for you to give out to your fans. And he looked at you like you had three heads. And then you went to get, because I think it was 2 stacks, and you went to get another one. And he asked me, and he's looking, who in the hell is that guy? And he asked me, and here's I am, nobody. And I'm like, oh, that's Michael Anderle, 7-figure author. He's extremely successful in his own right, but he's a fan of yours. And he's like, oh, okay. I said, no, he's not a creeper. Don't worry about that, because people who are extremely successful, even if 99 out of 100 fans are respectful and kind, that 1 out of 100 ruins it for everybody. A creeper who is all over them, and everybody's seen Misery. And especially as authors, it can resonate, especially when you get a creepy message or two, and you get a person who just won't leave you alone at a conference or a Comic-Con, and you've read the stories and heard about the crazy ones, and so establishing that, especially you as a higher level, but then you in a different position where you're a fan. So how can we maybe suggest to our good people in 20 books how to temper that from a fan perspective?
How to temper being a fan when you meet someone that's higher than you, if you will?
Well, somebody you respect. Because I would suggest that in even my position, I make more than people I've envied and followed for their whole careers, because they've been, let's say, held down by their contracts and stuff, and publish a couple books a year, but they're extremely popular and they're in bookstores, and just going up and talking to them, knowing that I make more money than they do, but still that they have been at the top of the game for a long time. So money as not as a discriminator, but as just a level of respect, I think, and that's how I always try to approach it.
I think that's the right word, just with respect. It's like, just let them know, hey, I'm a big fan. I've loved X book or Y book, so they know that you're actually a fan of their books. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's a Pathocrophis you want.
Yeah.
Not me.
Yeah.
And other than that, it's, being aware of their own time. Some authors are really gregarious. They're able to sit there and during that time, they're able to interact and understand. And others are doing it as needed, but not necessarily because they want to. And I'm usually very empathetic with trying to figure out, it's like, I really appreciate this, and step away. And if they keep me there because they keep answering questions, well, now that's on them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm happy to do it. But I did get a picture with Patrick later and just sent to my son, who's a huge Patrick Rothfuss fan and would listen to his audiobook over and over and over again. I get tired of hearing it.
Name of the Wind was a one of those books that yes, your magnum opus, and that was his first book, so that was really a nice piece. But at when we were in Woodland Hills, almost L.A., not quite Burbank, and I met Harry Turtledove, and he wanted to have nothing to do with anybody, and he was thinking, but his wife was the one who was very kind, and not that he wasn't kind, but just that it's not like he really wanted to be there. It was one of those things that he kind of had to show up for, and that's how he came across. That he would much rather be at home writing and doing what he does than be there in a big group, because it was a big crowd. And I thought it was okay because I was in my mess dress. I was dressed for success. But his wife was very, very kind, and so shift the conversation, talk to his wife about, hey, how much do you guys travel during the year and stuff like that. That then included her. And, I wasn't the smoothest about it, but at least I tried.
Yeah.
And I did get to shake Harry Turtledove's hand. So,
I've seen his books. I've never read one, but I when you say his name, I'm like, I know the name. I couldn't tell you his books, but I do know the name. And
Stainless Steel Rat.
Oh, well then, yes, I have read his books. Yeah. I have read those. So, there you go. Oops. And Names and Faces, correct? Names and Faces.
Yeah, I know. But with the relationship management and getting things like you at the bar with Patrick Rothfuss or Peter S. Beagle, and getting the selfies, your selfie game has improved over time. I've noticed. Compliments to you, but those kinds of things and not leveraging it, just saying, hey, I met some cool people and they're down to earth and moving forward.
That reminds me, because I can't remember names or faces, I'm a poor name dropper. I mean, like, for instance, now that you mention it, it's like, yeah, I actually did ask Peter S. Beagle to breakfast and went and had breakfast with him, but I'd forgotten about it.
Yeah.
So yeah. I can't even drop that name because I couldn't remember it.
I didn't. That was my first event with authors of that caliber. I mean, I'd hung out with you. You are an author of that caliber, but you're my friend, and that's a different. We had a different relationship before you go to an event like that where you've got, there's John Scalzi, there's Peter S. Beagle, there's Peter S. Beagle. He wrote a Star Trek episode that actually aired 40 years ago, and there, hey, there's Patrick Rothfuss, and there's and you look at these names, it's like, oh my God, look at these people and everyday people, but then they looked at us because we're like, oh yeah, we're full-time authors, we write full-time, and they looked at us like, holy cow, like, is that even possible? And that's where it hit me that, oh my God, these are two different worlds. You guys are very popular. You're in bookstores, and on Monday after the show is over, you're going to your day job.
Yeah. Or if they hadn't retired already. But I mean, you have that situation, and I remember you talking about Pittsburgh and everything. Well, actually, a lot of what I got is he going to be I don't know, what's the PG rating on this one? Is he going to be a dick? Is really what I learned, what everyone was trying to pay attention to, whether or not I was going to be nice or not. I didn't understand the reasoning behind that, and finally someone explained it to me. It's just they figured that I'd come in, and because I was making the money, I would be
arrogant.
Arrogant. There you go. Thank you.
And that wasn't the case at all. I mean, once we were just like, hey, let me buy you a drink, and it's cool. Let's hang out and talk. I love your books, and just like our conferences, once you start talking about the books, then the friction and discomfort of small talk goes away. Because like, hey, your books, what are you planning next for your next series? What's your next big book? And just keep it focused on the books and the stories and storytelling, maybe world building, some of the things that these more popular authors are really successful at doing. J.K. Rowling, hey, her world building has been fantastic, and there's even a park on it where you get to relive some of it.
We did, and while we were in Edinburgh, we went to go visit the area or the coffee shop, the bookshop, or whatever that she would be writing at. I mean, so it was kind of a neat experience doing that. And speaking of that, because you mentioned the stainless steel rat, while if I had seen Harry Dirtlev, once again didn't compute, but I would love to ask him, how'd you come up with that character? Yeah. I mean, that would fascinate me.
And what do you love about that character that keeps you writing it, that kept you writing it for so many books? Yeah, that's those kinds of things. And authors, after so many books, you might forget about the characters, but a conversation like that can bring you back to what made you write the books in the first place and love the characters. So from both perspectives, and like Michael said, make sure you read the book as opposed to just seeing the name saying, oh my God, it's Mercedes Lackey. I loved your whatever books.
Yeah, no, I Voldemort. Oh my God, when she killed the main character, once again names, but when he died, it just crushed me because I think it was the first time I had read a series where at the end the main character died. I mean, it was a great sacrifice, don't get me wrong, but still, I was like, yeah, just to this day, I get pissed off.
Well, Dumbledore dies in the middle, and then Voldemort dies at the end. They kill him good and dead, and his damn snake too. That'll learn you good. But that's, if there were any doubts about another sequel, I think that took care of it.
No, there's always a way. There's always a way. Even if your guy happens to get nuked off the face of the planet, there is always a way to bring him back. Just saying.
Hang on. I'll write you 4 new books. Please don't be mad.
Please put away the pitchforks. I had an out. I had a soap opera out, as I like to call it.
But relationships. I mean, you met somebody at Worldcon. We won't talk names, but the follow-ups there with that one, because that was one that led to a business prospect. Mm-hmm. So what about those follow-ups that you need to pay attention to for our listeners today?
So in that case, I think it was really compelling, regardless of the outcome, to go up to a fellow in a similar business. So we both were into characters, and I wanted to see if there was an opportunity for us to work together. And what it took at that level is this individual has been around for 40 years, or 35, if you will, in the business that he is in. And he's done a damn good job. And so we had been speaking for a while, trying to see if there's a match between what was going on. And one of the differences that helped it move forward was he saw that, one, I wasn't a person who had 2 books and a hope. I was like, no, take a look at our, at our website. You can take a look at our Amazon. You can look at the rankings. We are legitimate. Here's what I'm looking to do. And in doing so, because I'm the way I am, he's like, what would you like me to send you? I can get some people to send you some of the products. I'm like, screw that. I'm too interested. I'll just buy them all. So I bought $150 worth of stuff off Amazon so I could have it the next day coming in. Yeah. And so there was just a different mentality that I took that I think from a customer relationship, from a relationship standpoint alone, that set me apart. And that is because I'm like, I'm going the distance here on trying to make sure I want to see what's going on. I'm not afraid to spend some money on this. Now, at the same time, don't be an idiot. You don't want to be the one spending all the money and the other person's just taking advantage of you, taking you through your good ideas and then turning around and backtracking. I think I'll do this. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. So there should probably be some agreements up front before you divulge too much of your side of the coin. Because there's a lot of people who don't know publishing, and they, there isn't a large barrier to entry. Now there's a barrier to entry for people who don't have skill, but if you have the knowledge, which if in an effusive relationship, starting to get to know each other, you share too much of, they can just clap their hands and walk away, which has happened to one of our friends here recently. And so, there's not a lot that you can do. So just be aware of that in the relationship, that it is mutual, but at the same time, I'm sorry, but you're going to have to keep some of the cards close to your vest. Otherwise, some of them will just take it.
Yeah, and the we get asked for things, and I'm sure bigger authors get asked a lot, like get a manuscript, somebody shoot me one and say, hey, could you read this and give me an endorsement? I haven't been able to do that in probably a year, because I just don't have time to read something additional. And I might read the first chapter and then give some feedback, like, hey, this is really compelling, or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel horrible, because one person I promised I will read your book and give you an endorsement, but I read the first chapter and it turned me off so much. I told him I couldn't keep reading after the first chapter. So your endorsement is I'm not going to give one. And I felt bad, because I had promised before I actually read the book. And that's one thing that we've got to maintain our standards of quality based on what I think my readers like. So, because if you use my name, then I'm thinking that you're trying to target my readership, or people who know me and at least aren't reviled by my books. So those kinds of, keep that in mind, that these people are extremely busy, and if you ask for something, maybe there's nothing in return or something in return, and if there is nothing, then they're going to have to do it based on their estimate that, hey, you are an all-star that might be up and coming, and it's that first chapter thing. So for me, I'm always that first chapter has to hook me, otherwise I don't keep reading. And like Kevin J. Anderson, it took me a long time to ask him, would you do a forward on the Expanding Universe, which he did in the last Expanding Universe as a forward by Kevin J. Anderson. So that's
way cool.
That's nice. Previously, Michael Anderle did two of them, I think, two of our forwards. So it's asking that. It is a fair thing to ask, because it does take time. Even one page, it still takes time. And Kevin was very gracious and provided it. And I hope that I've been able to help him with some stuff in getting even to the shows, and make sure that he's taken care of. And Michael also has done wonders in making people feel welcome who are our guest speakers, wherever we may go.
Absolutely. So some of the other things so in this case, you're talking about it like you're here, the other person's here, right? And you should always be seeking opportunities to create relationships, create conversations with anywhere, that you can. What happens when you get the higher you go, right? The challenge at times is that there will definitely be individuals who are starting out that are trying to jump 7 levels and go straight to the top. And part of it is because the personalities are such that they just seek a shortcut. I mean, quite frankly, that's where it comes from. Some of them, they don't really understand that it's not wise to try to jump 7, in my opinion. Mind you, this is strictly my opinion. Not wise to try to jump 7 levels unless you're actually at that level and you just haven't been found, so to speak, or you haven't figured out the marketing. If that's true, then yes, try to jump those levels by all means. But I definitely have had a few situations where I've had to talk to people and I'm like, I'm sorry, but this isn't there. Your first chapter, then predominantly what happens is they will get upset, and they will get upset at me for spending my time to review something, and then I immediately fall in love with it. And I'm like, that's an emotional immaturity that you're going to get when you try to jump 7 levels and you're not there yet.
Yeah.
So at this point, it becomes to where you almost cringe if someone asks you to do it. For me, once again, rejection is an issue. And I'm like, oh, good. Here we go again. Let's see if I get this to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And so understand that at the emotional maturity, you have to understand that some people aren't going to like your stuff. I mean, all you have to do is go to J.K. Rowling's and see her hundreds and hundreds of 1-star reviews on people who it didn't resonate with because they just took it a certain way, just as simple as that. But if you're asking us, I would like to think that first, you're in my genre, and that we're writing on the same lines, and that you think my fans might be your fans. And don't be upset if they aren't, and if I'm not gonna push it. As I always say often in 20 books, no one is going to carry you, and that is the premise that you need to always hold close. That you can ask, but don't be offended and put out if somebody doesn't want to carry you, because we're indies and no one carries us.
Absolutely. And at the same time, it's almost like, and yet everybody carries us. It was a revelation to me a little bit when we were at, once again, that SIFWA event in Pittsburgh, and Data Guy was there. He was doing a presentation, and he was talking about the science fiction and fantasy sales. And he had mentioned how it was going up, and I don't remember the real number. Is it 1 billion or something? I don't remember. I don't know. Anyway, but then all of a sudden it started tracking down, and this is over a few years, like 10 years or whatever. And the premise was the story that was around this was science fiction and fantasy wasn't selling as well. Well, no, what happened is then, of course, Data Guy overlays data, and he goes, no, what's going on is all that is going to the indies. In fact, the gross, if you add indie plus trad, is that science fiction and fantasy has been still increasing year over year. And then I looked at that and I realized every one of us, if you've started and done your indie business in the last 10 years, longer, we all owe the people before us, the authors before us, the companies before us, Macmillan, Tor, Bain, for creating a readership that existed for us to tap into, that enjoyed this. And so from that perspective, I thought it was really insightful, at least for me, to just say, you know what, thank you. I don't care if I don't like your book. Thank you.
That's right. They established the readership and they put them out there. And that goes back to the respect. Show the authors respect, no matter where you are. Because especially as a 7-figure author, you're 1/1000th of 1% of all authors. You're at the very top of the group. And so what does that mean? Does that mean you're a better human being than they are? Not in any way, shape, or form. It means that we all put on our pants the same way if we're wearing them.
I am.
No.
Just to clarify, I am. I'm not asking you to show anything.
It's like a hairless cat down there. No, but some respect and treat them that way, and don't overstay your welcome. And sometimes they may invite something. I know John Brazy has had some success. Jerry Purnell and Larry Niven both looking at his stuff. Jerry Purnell was what was his comment? It wasn't terrible, I think, is what Jerry Purnell told John Brazy, that he had read his book and it wasn't terrible.
Which Jonathan was good. The rat is Harry Harrison, isn't it?
Harry Harrison. What did Harry Turtledove write?
So you got confused with the Harry part.
Yeah. What did Harry Turtledove write?
Okay. I don't know.
Somebody Google it, because I don't have enough bandwidth to Google and do Be Live. And I'm happy that
it's high praise from Jerry.
I'm barely able to do video. It was grim this morning.
All right. So, but going on, what are customer relationship management? So we have those. That's an author one. You can discuss publisher. But let's go to the one that probably matters most to your bottom line, which is the readers.
Okay.
So get us started on that.
For the readers, one thing I think that you started off well with the Cartharian Gambit Facebook group page, and now that page has some 13,000 people following it and liking it now. So that one was a way to manage the fans. You asked them for things. You ran polls. You ran naming contests. You gave away mugs with each new release. There's all these kinds of things where you keep the fans engaged on that page. And the more that they're there and click like and add comments, the more that Facebook says, hey, they like this, and we'll share the stuff to them. So it's mutually supporting in that regard. But just treating the fans like gold, like they are. Getting a fan to come back, especially if you write in long series, it's easier to sell 10 books to one person if you have earned the respect of that one person and show that you really care about them, and not that they're just a money faucet for you. So running those things, the Kurtherian Gambit fans and authors is a little bit different group where the authors now interact with the fans, your people in your publishing company interact directly, and the fans really feel engaged. They feel engaged. They can make recommendations, and we'll answer them. Say, hey, yes, I like that. And some of the new fans, the recent ones who jump in, they're like, oh my God, my favorite author answered me. I've seen that, like Saranofsky. She answered somebody and said, oh my God, Saranofsky actually talked to me. And if you know Saranofsky, she's probably like, what the hell are you talking? I'm Saranofsky. You ever see me park? So
and not give a shit because I won't park the second time.
But she's half-assed, crooked, and has a Prius. And still can't get in between the lines on a parking spot. And you have to be tall enough to see over the. You have to see over the steering wheel, though.
Two yellow page books on, but it's kind of like you can park a Prius sideways and it'll fit between the lines, but not her.
It should, but not her. No. But those kinds of things, interacting with the fans, the newsletters, every one of my newsletters, I always start with something personal. Hey, I live in the subarctic. It's really cold up here. It's snowy. And hey, here's a picture of where I live and pictures I used to share of my dog. And the fans like that, those personal stories. And then, hey, then let's get into something. So if you don't want to get into the books, you just want to read about Alaska, that's fine. I ask you, don't unsubscribe, because maybe I will have something that you'll like at some point. But if you don't, then if you want to unsubscribe, that's fine. It's easy. It's one click easy. So those things to keep the fans engaged and happy and keep you as an author in the front of their minds. So always treat the fans with respect. I answer emails even if they're simple. Some emails I don't answer, actually, but those are ones where, hey, here's how the plot should have gone in the last book, and here's what you should do in the next book. I generally don't answer those because I don't want to encourage people to think that I'm going to go back and rewrite a book because they think the plot should have gone a different way, or the characters should act in a different way, or something like that.
That kind of is interesting you say that, because I would associate that with comments and low star reviews, right? People, wow, I don't like this, that, and the other. And I'd look at it, I'm like, 5s and 4s, if they add up to 80% or close, I'm going to call it good.
Yeah.
So just from that perspective, but I'd be curious, Craig, on that itself. I mean, I don't think I have my email out there very much in order for people to actually say anything to it. I've had people track me down and explain that it's like, it's really hard to find how to get a hold of you. Great. That's what I want. And then, of course, this morning I wake up and I see that we're doing this advertising with Publishers Weekly. And I'm like, there's no contact information on our website. Oh, shit.
Nice.
Shot myself in the foot. Let me just
So you've got a Publishers Weekly ad, only about $1,000 worth, and no contest information.
Not a contest, but still, I'm like, you know what? So we have to build that. But I'm really cognizant of keeping our communication lines in the normal social areas. It's kind of like, I want it to be out in public. I don't want too many privates. And I still get people connecting with me on private areas, but I'm not on Facebook very much. So it's like, they're just going to have to wait and hope that I see it in the first place. And I think, I keep expecting like next year I'll come up for air and I'll have time to be more social again. Because when I started, I had lots of social time. We had no 20 books. Hadn't created it yet. We had no other things. It was just me writing a few books and feeling excited that anybody cared to talk to me.
Yeah. But that's we've got people coming all the way from the UK, readers, because of the signing event in Vegas this year.
Yeah.
So this is another opportunity to interact on our terms. Not, hey, come do lunch with me in Vegas or anything like that. It's hey, here, we're having an event, and you can plan for that, and then we'll be there. And that is another thing. I know a lot of people go to a lot of shows. They travel to them. I personally cannot, because I live in Fairbanks, and it's 3,000 miles just to drive to Seattle before driving anywhere else in the United States. So I'm actually doing 2 shows in February in right here in Fairbanks. One is at the Air Force Base. They're having a one-day Comic-Con. And then the other one is at the Carlson Center, which is a huge venue. And they're having the Alaska Comic-Con. So two that I can drive to, one's 30 miles away and the other one's 5. So it's crazy. So yeah, I have no problem going to those events and meeting people, and hopefully bringing more fans on board with, hey, this is me, science fiction author. I live in Alaska. I'm the Alaska Captain Kirk, right? So here I am.
I think William
live long and prosper, man. Live long and prosper.
There's no place like Burger Flirting. It's been an exciting ride, what we've experienced in the last 4 years through writing these books, meeting people, hearing how lives have been changed or helped or whatever, realizing that, yeah, you can heal, maybe not a heart, but you can heal heartache, through writing and providing people a way to get away from their reality at the moment. Just a couple of items. Thank you very much for letting us know that Harry Turtledove, Alternative History, Civil War.
Yeah.
And then the individual who said, poor Sarah, y'all are wrong. No, you have not been on the other end of a Sarah tongue lashing. She deserves all the shit we give her. Just saying. She has earned it 17 times over. And this is like the only time that I've actually ever been like, yeah, her parking. I mean, she talks about her own parking anyway. This is all of this is free time. Just, anyway.
Yeah. But that's as you move up, you're going to change your perspective, because as a new author, and I like to believe that all authors are readers first. You have your favorite people that you read, and as you move up, you may become on an even playing field with those folks. And as an indie, your chances of being on an even playing field are even greater when it comes to like revenue and your ability to write full time, or even if you don't want to write full time because your day job is great, you enjoy it, you get great benefits, that's perfectly fine. Just understand, here's your limits, manage your readership. And this is another thing that I'm hard over on, is you have to manage your reader expectations. So not just here's your readers, and they're going to beg you, write faster, do this. But if you tell them I'm only going to write 3 books a year, just keep being consistent with that message. Don't cave and say, okay, I'll spend a week on vacation. I'm going to do nothing but write this book, and you'll get an extra book this year. Only do that if you're actually going to, but also understand that if you go from 3, all of a sudden you give them 4 books in a year, they're going to want 4 books next year and then harangue you to get 5. So just manage that consistently. Like the old school authors, you look at somebody, hey, he only has 60 books out, only 60. I mean, here's our jaded perspective nowadays, but that's 2 books a year for 30 years. Can you work at the same job for 30 years straight? I mean, I lasted 21 in the Marine Corps, and that was it. I had to go. But doing the same thing, year in, year out. So this is what your fans will expect, and that's why when you set that standard, you stay consistent, and your fans will be good with that, and they'll be waiting for your next book, as long as you've got somewhere where you have them on the hook, whether it's your newsletter or your Facebook page. And my regards for the passing. Mary Higgins Clark passed away yesterday. I mean, she was 92, but still, she was a titan in her own right, as far as an author goes.
Absolutely. So other things related to relationship management also includes the relationship between you and the companies that you produce your product and who sell it for you, or produce the services that you consume in order to sell your service or get your arcs out. Meet those people, create relationships inside those companies, because you honestly at times could need that, which is obvious, but also they travel to other companies, and the next thing you know, you might have an in at the up and coming marketing company because you knew somebody who worked over here and they moved. You never know. So, always obviously treat them with respect. You want to do that. It is a situation where, they have a job to perform for the company, which is usually trying to make sure in some cases you're happy, but just be aware of that. And you do have to manage those relationships all the way around.
That's especially the service providers like Podium, Tantor, Audible, Dreamscape, Findaway Voices, all of the good people who support indies. And I know Michael and I work at a broader level. I mean, you may work only with Podium, but then maintain that relationship and keep a good relationship. Tantor actually sent me a Christmas present. It was interesting, and I appreciated that, and I sent them numerous thanks on going out of their way for me. So it's those opportunities are there, and when you see them, don't take them lightly, because these folks, Tantor has a growing list of authors that are joining their
ranks,
their product lines, and it's still the same number of people who are servicing more and more. So they have less and less time to deal with individual authors. So when you do get some of their time, give them some love and let them know that you appreciate it. And that's how you manage those relationships. Never, Amazon sells 85% of the books in the market, right?
No, actually, it's closer to 55.
I think it was 51% of all books.
Oh.
85% of the ebook market.
Yes, I think that's close. Yes,
but yeah, I think they just went over 50 of all books, whether booksellers or anything. So, Amazon, we have a lot of interaction with Amazon. Amazon is on 20 books. They have a number of reps there, just watching, taking the pulse of what's going on, and it's important. That's why we don't allow people to flame on Amazon. It's not for us, but it's for you. It's to protect you from a moment of rage that your price didn't change when it expected, or changed back, or something weird happened. And raging on Amazon isn't going to get you what you want, because this is a long game. Being mad today doesn't mean you're going to be mad next week. So controlling that is really important. And understanding that they've got millions of authors, especially with indies nowadays. How many people are publishing books? We've got 37,000 in 20 books alone. And you all run into fellow authors who've never heard of 20 books. So we're a drop in the bucket. All of these authors, and almost all of them, are publishing on Amazon, at least in one shape, one way or another. So Amazon has all these people. You don't want to stand out in the wrong way.
And that's true. And I think that also part of it's respect. Yeah. You know, it's just not allowing people to sit there and bemoan a situation. They can be frustrated. I understand. Yeah. But I don't want them frustrated and taking it out on a company who honestly can't argue back anyway, right? They're not going to do it from a corporate structure, but that's not the house I want. So not going to do it. And frankly, you and I've had this discussion years ago about, do these people, the individuals that are saying these things, not clue in to don't bite the hand that feeds you?
Yeah. And you can register your dismay in a different way. This isn't working for me, because we've asked for some things from Amazon. Said, hey, how many hundreds of thousands of books do we have to sell before we can get some maybe a little extra credit in a certain area, or not get an Amazon ad approved or something like that. And how can we predict our price changes better? Something that we think as a business we should be able to do, and things like that. And still, sometimes it doesn't work in our favor, and we register our dismay respectfully and move on and figure out a way to deal with it. And actually, I forgot to change a price on one of my books this morning, and it was the anthology, and a couple of people had already sent out their newsletter saying 99 cents, and it was $4.99. I'm like, oh my God, I screwed everybody. So I jumped on real quick and changed the price, and it only took 45 minutes, and the price change went into effect. And I was looking at it, I'm like, this is going to be one of those days. It'll be tomorrow before it actually goes into effect, and it didn't. 45 minutes. I think all of the issues over the last 6 months, as they're revising the system to improve the speed by which those things happen, are starting to come into play. And the price changes, 45 minutes, so saved my bacon from hosing everybody on the price change. But those kinds of relationship, because of respectful approach, bringing the issue up in a way, and if you don't have a possible solution, well, then you're just complaining. Except with a company like Amazon, don't try to tell them how to do it. Just say, this is an issue for me, and I think it should work better, or it did work better in the past, and all of a sudden now it's not working. So those kinds of things. There's a right way to bring up an issue, and there's a way that isn't as effective.
Yeah, and it's hard in the heat of the moment, in the heat of the emotions. It's hard. Bite your tongue. You will appreciate it later, which is hard. I tend to be a very ranty individual, and I've had a lot of tongue biting the last year and a half.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it saves you by not being on social media as much, because first, you don't get as spun up as quickly.
Yeah, I don't see it to be upset. So
Yeah.
it's probably helped me to have a lot longer life. I'm not upset. I'm not stressed about anything. Everybody else is stressed, and I'm like mad at me or whatever they could be, and I'm just blissfully unaware.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
this really torques him off, and no, it doesn't.
Well, thank goodness. I think we are complimented the most for 20 books to 50K on being anti-drama. So we don't allow any drama posts. We don't allow any posts that begin word with so I heard. Nope, we're killing that post. I don't care what comes after that. We're killing it, because there's no right answer there.
I'm going to go create one. So I heard Craig Martelle said.
Michael Anderle can't post what he wants on my own site. Somebody's children heard us cussing, so you better get your language under control, mister.
Wait, what?
Oh, shit, man. Did I do that again?
I didn't do that.
I don't think we dropped the F-bomb today, so thank goodness. First thing, we did talk about hairless cats, so in a not a complimentary way.
But that's actually.
Oh no, that was me. Sorry.
Yeah, there was a complete not a we in that. I just kept my mouth shut. But I would say that some of those kind of go like the old Bugs Bunny and Looney Tunes, where the jokes were at two different levels. The adults caught the one level of humor, and the kids never knew it.
Yeah, they're rewatchable. They are very rewatchable with an adult perspective. But relationships. So we talked about relationships with industry providers, industry professionals, your cover designer. Even if you have to cut ties with a cover designer because it's just not working, do it respectfully. Don't burn bridges, because guess what? Cover designers all talk. The other people all talk. You just move on your way and find somebody who does resonate with you. Editors, there are great editors that people can't work with, and there are mediocre editors who do well with certain people. So you just have to find what fits correctly for you. And I think one of my biggest personal brands is being a nice guy. Yeah, you know better, because we're behind the scenes. Yeah, no shit. But always trying to help out and be helpful and giving, and that's a good brand. It works well, and also it's also critical for me because of things I had to do in the Marine Corps, and I'm trying to make up for those. So trying to be giving and take care of people is something that I'm charged with doing for the rest of my life. But I think we're doing a good job at that. I think keeping prices down for the conferences. I think making 20 books to 50K available to anybody. You just come in. You just got to follow our rules, and our rules are: don't be a dick, don't come in here with drama, don't self promote. The big things that help us be more of a professional organization, even though there's no charge. There's no board of directors. We don't have any money, any kitty of things that we have to answer to the government for, which is a huge bonus for making it available. The videos you can watch. Jesus, we're probably over 100 hours now of videos that people can watch of stuff that based on what information they need at the time. Don't try to learn it all. You can't learn it all. It has 4 years. We're still learning. Going on, 4.5 years. We've been doing this and still learning. So you will never know it all. Just learn what you need to know at the time you need to know it. Otherwise, you're going to be overwhelmed and paralyzed with what you don't know, compared to getting something out there, learning the advertising and marketing ropes, and keep moving forward. So, because the money you make today is in 2 months, it will be the money you can spend on your advertising, marketing, and if you make enough, well, then it'll be money you can use to take your family out to dinner or even make a mortgage payment. Who knows? I mean, March of 17 was my biggest month, and the money I made in March allowed me to go buy a truck in May of 2017.
Which is all because of relationships.
Yep. Well, actually, it was January. The money I made in January, got paid of it, and December and January were huge, and there we are. I went and bought a truck. So
that was a proud moment. I was happy to see you do that.
It was nice. It was not, and I've only had two months that were bigger than that since then. So I've hit a peak. But what I'm trying to prove this year in 2020 is that I don't have to write 13 books in a year like I did the big year, and still make that kind of money with 4 to 6 books through hard launches and through exploring and exploiting that backlist. Because if I've only sold 10,000 copies of a book on my backlist, that means there's only 1 billion readers of English still available out there that I can target. I mean, when I saw ads for Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone on Amazon and in my email, I'm like, even J.K. Rowling is looking for that one reader on the planet who has not read her book. So I think the estimate was 9% of all readers of English had read Harry Potter. So she's looking for that other 91% still.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because she fits an interesting demographic. You have children who were born 9 years ago who did not go through the Harry Potter movie phase, right?
Yep.
And so if that child's parents weren't Potter fans, well, how are they going to get introduced? Is Scholastic still, which I would think they would, but I have no idea, would Scholastic be still pitching it inside the schools? There's just this opportunity. And then there are parents who read them, loved them, and since have had life beat the crap out of them and forgotten about it, but now have children that she would want to. And then there are older people who are coming off of that time of their life when they're starting to pick up reading again, where maybe in college they forswore all reading because they just got burnt out. So likewise, we have to look at it as, maybe in your case, maybe there's that sci-fi person who has forsworn sci-fi for 5 years because they got burnt out on it. And maybe Kevin J. Anderson brought them back in just 2 months ago, and now you hit them with an ad, and they're, another sci-fi, let me go for this.
Yeah.
You don't know what that opportunity is.
Oh, Joseph Alexander said a very profound thing that struck me like a gong. Hey, that's real. No shit, I should have known that. He said every new subscriber to your email list, your book that was new 6 months ago might have no idea that it exists. Yeah. So his funnel then includes, hey, here's this first in series in this other book, even though he does nonfiction guitar books and extremely, extremely successful. Still, it's like they don't know that, they might not know that book exists. So his funnel extends beyond the first 5 to then 3 months down the road. By the way, here's this release. And even though it was a year ago, this may be new to you. Here's a new release, first in series. So I'm thinking about extending my funnels to then include, hey, here's this first in series of this one. Even though I hit those and we promote them, it's still, hey, make them aware. This is a first, so it'll be first to them. Like you were saying with Kevin J. Anderson, hey, he brought somebody on board. They might not know about these other science fiction authors who've been working with Kevin on other things. It's a great way to stay fresh. I mean, how many times have you gone to a bookstore, like a used bookstore, and you find an Andre Norton book that you hadn't read? It's like, oh, hey, you check the back and you buy it. Those kinds of things. Now in the ebook world, it goes and comes. The cycle is much more quick than the old used bookstore method that I grew up with. I lived in used bookstores looking for, hey, somebody trade in that newest Conan book. Come on, man, come on. And now with the ebooks, you just have to let them know, hey, this book's available here. It's 99 cents this week as for your list, letting them know. And that's what I'm trying to do with the promotions. Always make them aware that, hey, I have another series. Even if you've read them all, I bet you I have another one, I'm sure, somewhere.
The interesting thing that the homework book I gave you that you've been bitching about to everybody.
I'm on page 4 now.
Yes. So whenever you get past page 4 and into the book, what you're going to see is that what we need to do as publishers is more akin to bookstores. So for us to learn, we need to take the bookstore mentality and see what the troubles and the travails they had, not the publishers, because traditionally publishers have gone, well, even now through distributors, from distributors over to bookstores. So, now I went from all the Shatskin books and I'm over reading Rebel, like a Rebel bookseller or something. And it has to do with, I'm learning about the bookstore trade and seeing what's going on there. And what is it? Dysfunctional is the only word I can tell you about the bookstore trade. It has been incredibly dysfunctional. And so it's like nobody ever sat together and got these people in the same room and said, how can we fix this? And so it's going to get eaten apart, because they won't. And I'm not interested myself in trying to fix that mess.
Yeah, too many competitors, and they're just looking for different ways to one up the next guy, or just get a certain share of the pie. There was no mutual incentive to fix it.
Yeah. So,
and that's where Amazon saw that market niche and said, ebooks will eventually be the way to go.
Yeah, I mean, they put a lot of effort into it. So we'll see what happens, but there's still great opportunity in paper. I think you just cannot think in this existing box.
Yeah.
Even with, I think it was who was it? Was it James or Sarah Spalding who put the image up there about the Barnes and Noble that had a whole end wrap on Lit RPG?
Yeah, James Hunter, Dakota Kraut, James Baldwin. A lot of our people were on that rack, so it was all indies, and it was in Vegas at the Barnes and Noble.
Really?
Yes.
I can't tell you the last time I was in Barnes and Noble here in Vegas. Oops. But for me, I look at that and I look at the process, and I think that if a Dakota James or James and James were to get picked up by Walden or by them, it would be great, but it's not going to be quite the same as it used to be, right? Because the new leadership is telling the stores, you run, right? And so this store has the ability to go and make that happen. But should they, the challenge is going to be that, where's Lit RPG? How many stores how many stores do they still have open? 1,000, 1,500, 2,000?
For BNN, I don't know. Yeah. I'm sure somebody can Google that real quick. It strikes me that it shouldn't be 1,000, that it might be 600 or 700 is all.
Yeah, so if it's an 1,800 book order, if all of them ordered 3, then you're looking at what is your profit off of that, and then you have to deal with it returns, and it's like, what? Not so sure. In this book that I'm reading, which I should pull up and at least give the name of, one of the things I want to make a comment on, and I'm probably more than 4 pages, but less than 40.
Okay.
Yeah. That's you. And one of the things the guy mentioned in it was, if you need to take home $100,000, you need to have a plan on the bookstore selling $1 million, which is $2,750 a day. No, 275. What's $1 million? I forget. Yes, 100,000 for us. We would have to sell $275. That's Amazon coming to us, or Amazon plus Kobo plus Apple. But for them, that's $2,750 a day in selling books. Rebel Bookseller by Andrew Laties, Laties, is the one I'm looking at.
Okay.
And so, but just, I look at that and I go, wow, from our mentality, we have to sell 1/10 as much as a bookstore in order for us to be profitable at the same amount of money. And it's just, there's that number bugs me so far. And I read it last night, and it's just kind of like, okay, did we know that?
I don't think it's wrong. That actually sounds right. Because
No, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree. I just, go ahead.
Yeah, I've gone through that with my trad pub, my imprint of Simon & Schuster, with the 4 books I have with them, and how many books they've sent out to bookstores, how many got returned, and how many sold, and what price, and looking at it, I'm like, oh my God. I have a great rate. From all the trad pub authors I've talked to, the percentage they're paying me is above or at the top of what I've heard anybody getting. So I'm quite pleased with that. But just so the sheer volume of numbers, looking at it, it's like, oh my God. For me to make the same money, I said 1/10. It's like 1/10 the volume to make the same money without the overhead.
Yes. Okay. So yeah, someone is asking about losing audio. I can if anyone's going to lose audio, usually it's me. I can't hear Craig, but everything seems fine. Interestingly enough.
Somebody said 627 B&N stores as of June 7th.
Oh, well, son of a gun. Boy, weren't you pretty accurate? Not me, for sure. We're the risk takers for them. We're the market. They want risk of things self-published. Well,
yeah.
Well, see, the problem is when you look at it that way, I mean, this isn't a situation where we want to get off topic too much, but if a trad pub sees that, let's say, vampires came back, right, which we can argue it did somewhat, when are they going to get it? It takes them a year and a half to get the books out, even a year. So now they can do it faster. They have done it faster. They've made a concerted effort in a couple of times, and they've been able to turn something around in 45 days to 60 days, but it messes with their productivity the way that they've structured it in the past. So there are challenges.
You bet. I hate to say this, but I'm fidgeting like a little kid because of too much coffee. So
is it time to go, Craig?
So I think it's time to go.
So did you have now that we have? But did you have any small announcements you wanted to talk about with 20 Books Vegas?
No. I wanted to focus this one completely on relationship management and how people just looking up, looking down, looking sideways, and looking at the masses, the readers. So the different ways and different groups of people that you interact with. And we didn't go into brand, but the brand is simply you need to be consistent and manage your customers the certain way. I saw a new book by Terry Goodkind. A new book got published. And the first thought I had was, hey, Terry, did you approve that cover? Because of the blow up he had with the public outing of this cover's crap and my artist should be shot kind of comments. And the artist is like, I produced, he came back. The artist shot back at Terry Goodkind and said, I produced exactly what your publisher asked for. And the publisher said, we produced the cover that we thought would sell the book. In your contract, you'll note that we produce the covers. And so everybody, I mean, the publisher, the readers, the artists, everybody was taking pot shots at Terry Goodkind because he went out of his way to say this cover's crap. And it's not what I want at all. Sorry, man. You signed a contract. Deal with it and move on. But that was my first thought. And that happened over a year ago. So my first thought is, hey, man, did you approve that cover? I'm not going to buy it, but because you were such a jerk that one time. He was he doubled down on it, so it wasn't just that one time. But still, how do you treat people, and how do you look at those who help you, those who are your fans, and be consistent? Be consistent in a good way. Yeah. If you're upset, turn off your computer and go beat nails with a hammer until you can stop being upset, because it doesn't take much. It absolutely doesn't take much to destroy a long-term reputation, as you've seen with recent drama-filled events. It doesn't take much, and all of a sudden, an organization is destroyed after 30 years of being in existence.
Yeah. So going off on a non-somber note, congrats everybody. It's been, the first month of 2020 is behind us. I hope your month and your sales are at least going where you want to, or you have ideas on how to get it moving in the direction that you want to. But, there's a lot of information on 20 books to 50K. And if you can't find it in the FAQ section, have you read it? Have you, looked for it? Then, type a question out. I know a lot of you prefer just to sit and read, and that's fine. But the real power is understanding what your question is, understanding why everything there doesn't solve your question, and asking something pointedly, because either someone already has the same question as you, or they will, and they'll be able to find your question and get the answers they need.
And we're evolving to the units, which is a thing Facebook put in to help you manage, almost like training modules, getting away from the Google Doc incrementally. But for now, the Google Doc is still gold, but the units, as we put more and more items into very detailed units with subunits, and it makes finding the information, I'd like to think, a little bit easier. So,
all right, let's let you go to the restroom, man.
There we are. Hey, thank you very much. There it was, relationship management. You should see it up on YouTube, hopefully shortly, for those who joined in late. It's all good, man. It's all good. You can rewatch the side of your screen where it says videos. Click videos. You'll be able to find this, and then you can bring it up there anytime or wait for it on YouTube and watch it there. So thank you very much. I hope we provided some information for you. And of course, it goes back to the one of the two main 20 books rules: don't be a dick, or the alternative is be kind. And that is be kind to your readers. Let them know exactly what you're doing. Be kind to those folks who support you. Be kind and respectful to those folks you might fangirl over. So it's just a good premise for life. Be kind to the clerk at the grocery store. I mean, just be kind to everybody. It'll change your life. I'm telling you, it will, because it's going to take a lot of less stress off you.
Yeah.
There you are.
Take care,
Bob, your uncle.